All right. Well, welcome to our first ever Invictus office hour. So, again, the intention of this office hour is to be able to, excuse me, be able to answer questions that you guys might have on anything relating to fitness, like exercise, nutrition, mindset, health, anything around the realm of what we do at Invictus. I'm recording this meeting, so I'll be able to post it on the Facebook group, and I'll be able to send out a link afterwards as well. So for those of you that didn't catch it, and again, nobody's on right now. If anybody happens to jump on, I'll answer any questions live. But I do have a number of questions that were sent already by you guys, which was awesome. So I'm going to jump into those questions and get going as we speak. Okay, so there were a lot of questions that were relating to like how to eat, like intermittent fasting or carbs, or, you know, how many fruits and veggies, or are carbs bad at night, that kind of thing. So I'm going to address those one at a time. So let's start with intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is something that that everybody does every single day, whether you know it or not, right? So you don't eat all night long while you sleep, and you wake up and you break your fast. That's why it's called breakfast, right? There is a ton of research out there around what is known as time-restricted eating, right? Which is essentially what intermittent fasting is. And there's a number of different ways that you can go about doing it. So there's what's known as the warrior diet, which is like a 16-8 fast, which means that you fast for 16 hours of the day and you have an 8-hour eating window. So that would mean like you would start eating at like 11 a.m. and stop eating at like 7 p.m., right? And so you're fasting for 16 hours. There's some people that fast for 24 hours. There's, you know, a number of religions that that really preach fasting, like Muslim religion. The Muslim religion, they do during Ramadan. They fast all day long. They don't eat during when the sun is up. The Mormon religion fasts the first Sunday of every month. They call it Fast Sunday. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I was just jumping in, starting to answer some of the questions that were sent. So, talking about intermittent fasting. So here's the interesting thing about intermittent fasting. Of all the research that's out there, there's some new stuff that's just come out. And what they're finding is that intermittent fasting in and of itself doesn't really have an effect that's greater than just, you know, monitoring your calorie intake, right? In terms of weight loss or anything like that. And I'm assuming that most people are asking about intermittent fasting because they've heard that it's awesome for weight loss. Oh, there's somebody else. So when we look at, you know, just the act of intermittent fasting versus counting calories, there's really no benefit of intermittent fasting versus counting calories, right? So you don't have to do some form of time restricted eating in order to see benefits or weight loss benefits. Now, that being said, I think that there are some benefits of intermittent fasting that are outside of just the idea that it doesn't have it doesn't increase fat loss. What intermittent fasting does in what we found is it really helps to help you learn and differentiate the difference between actual hunger and like boredom hunger, right? There's so many times that we're just kind of bored and we just buy, you know, it's just a habit that we go to the fridge or the pantry, we grab something to eat. But are we really hungry? Are we physiologically hungry in that time? Do we really need to eat food? Versus are we just doing it because it's a habit and we're placating? So first of all, I think what it does is it helps you really differentiate between physiological hunger and like boredom hunger. Two, the act of time restrictive eating, because you are, you know, putting all of your meals into a certain time frame, you end up eating less calories overall for the most part. So without having to count calories, time restricted eating or intermittent fasting seems to just kind of naturally help you eat less calories overall. So there are some benefits that we do it. We don't, at Invictus, we don't recommend jumping right into intermittent fasting right off the bat. Like we feel that time restricted eating or intermittent fasting, and then I'm going to talk about carb cycling in a second. There was a couple of questions about that. I feel like those are more of like what we would call more of an advanced technique, right? Like there are certain baseline foundational skills, behaviors, habits that you need to develop and implement and become really comfortable, and they need to just be a part of your life before we worry about trying to tweak something for a small benefit, right? So hopefully that answered your questions on intermittent fasting. Hi, Michaela. Thanks for jumping on. Can't hear you if you're talking, but anyways, all right. So for those of you guys that are joining me live, feel free to jump in and ask any questions along the way. But everybody sent a bunch of questions ahead of time, so I'm just going to kind of jump through those and answer them the best I can. And again, if there's something that you guys want more clarity on, feel free to ask me. So let's talk about carbs and carb cycling. So that was something that was asked a couple of different times. Like, what is carb cycling? Is it beneficial? I got some questions about like eating carbs at night. Is that good or bad? I'm going to start by saying there's no such thing as, bad foods, right? There's no such thing as bad calories. There's no such thing as, foods that are, it really comes down to, are you eating too much of something, right? And carbohydrates is one of those things that, depending on who you listen to and what book you read or what website you go to or whose Instagram feed you're on, you're going to hear all kinds of different things about carbohydrates, right? Now, here's what the research says. When you look at all of the clinical research done on weight loss, and we talk about, taking certain macronutrients out, whether it's carbohydrates, whether it's fat, whether it's, protein, the ones that seem to have the best results from a weight loss standpoint are the ones that reduce carb intake dramatically. Let me preface that, or let me make sure that I put that into context. These are clinical studies. These are done in a laboratory type setting. They are not done with real world people that are out there living the real lives, right? The other thing that is important to understand when it comes to carbs is the level of activity that you have. If you're an athlete, if you are actively exercising, your body needs and can burn more carbohydrates than somebody that's more sedentary. That being said, most people are probably eating too many carbohydrates, especially simple carbs, processed carbs, bread, cereals, pastas, things like that are not in their natural form. And by eliminating some of those carbohydrates, naturally you're eliminating some calories, which means you're eating less calories overall. And again, when it comes to weight loss, it doesn't matter. Like the overarching theme for weight loss is you have to eat less calories than you burn, period. Right. And we can get into a discussion around hormones and food quality, and do hormones affect the ability to absorb food or burn calories, like all these different things. But at the end of the day, whether your hormones are affecting you or not, if you're not burning more calories than you're eating, then you will not lose weight, period, no matter what. So carb cycling is a way of eating where you will cycle carbs into your diet at specific times. And again, there's a number of different ways to do carb cycling. The most common way is to pretty much have very low carbs during the week and then carb cycle on Friday or Saturday and Sunday, where you're going to increase the amount of carbs and lower the amount of fat, right? So typically carb cycling, you're going to have a high protein, higher fat, low carbs during your cycle. And then when you come off the cycle, you're going to increase your carbs. You typically want to keep your protein pretty high, which means you need to reduce your fat content coming back down. There are a couple other ways to do it. There's something known as carb backloading, where you eat all of your carbs immediately after your exercise session, when your body is the most susceptible to be able to pull those carbohydrates into your muscles and to store them as glycogen. But again, whether it's carbohydrates, whether it's fat, whether it's protein, if you're eating too many calories in general, your body will store those calories as fat. So again, carb cycling is one of those things that we use as an advanced technique, that once we feel like you really have a good foundation laid, that you're really doing all the basic things really well, then it's something we could start to play with and experiment with and see if it can have a positive or negative effect on what's going on with your diet. Okay. So on that same note, we got a couple of questions about like fasted cardio, HIIT cardio, slow cardio. What's the best form of cardio? Should I do it fasted? Should I do it slow? Should I do HIIT? What's the best kind of cardio? Is cardio necessary for weight loss at all? Let's start by answering the last one. Is cardio necessary for weight loss? The answer is absolutely no. It is not necessary for weight loss. Again, weight loss happens when you eat less calories than you burn, period. So you don't need to do cardio in order to increase the amount of calories you burn. As a matter of fact, the most effective way to lose weight when you incorporate exercise is through strength training. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Strength training, you're not burning a ton of calories while you're doing it, but it increases and maintains lean body mass. So if you're calorie restricting, meaning that you're eating less calories on purpose, resistance training is going to help preserve the muscle and go, so your body goes after the fat for the extra energy that it needs to make up from between what you're eating and what you're burning. And there is something that's called the EPOC, excessive post exercise oxygen consumption. A lot of layman terms call it afterburn, and that's where resistance training actually increases your metabolism for a period of time after you lift weights. So about 48 to 72 hours after you lift weights, your metabolism is at an elevated state, meaning that you're burning more calories just normally at rest while you're doing everything else than not. Now, the difference is when you do cardio, you tend to burn a lot more calories in the moment while you're doing cardio, right? Whether you're running or cycling or on a rower or whatever, you burn more calories while you're doing it. But the afterburn effect, that EPOC, doesn't have the same effect. It goes pretty much back to normal within 30 to 45 minutes after you're done doing cardio. So what would I recommend? The best method is to have a balance. Right? A balance of resistance training that you're doing at least 2 or 3 times a week. That's full body resistance training, large muscle groups primarily, and some cardiovascular training that's done an additional 2 or 3 times a week. Could be on the same days, could be on opposite days. But no, cardio is not necessary for weight loss. Now, when it comes to cardio, if you're doing it, let's say you're a runner and you like to go running, is fasted cardio better than unfasted cardio or fed cardio? And again, the answer is kind of. So the research that's been done on it shows a very little tiny marginal benefit, meaning that you tend to burn more calories from fat when you're fasted during cardio than when you're not fasted. The reason I emphasize that it's a tiny little bit is it's really so insignificant in the long run that it really doesn't make that big of an effect. It's really not going to change whether or not you lose fat from doing cardio fasted or not. And what the other things they found from fasted cardio is that you tend to not be able to go at the same intensity. You're not able to go as hard. You're not able to go as long, which those things can also affect how many calories you burn, how many of those calories come from fat. So really the answer is whatever you feel the best doing. If you feel really good doing cardio, if you get up first thing in the morning and you go for a run and you feel good doing it, then by all means continue doing it. If you feel sluggish, if you feel tired, if you feel like you're not able to put as much effort into it, then having something to eat before you go may be the difference between that. And it's not going to affect really how many calories you burn or whether those calories are coming from fat or not. I hope that answers your question on fasted cardio. Let's talk about slow pace versus HIIT training. So let's define that real quick. HIIT stands for high intensity interval training. Now, high intensity, the word intensity is the key thing there, because intensity is relative, right? There's no one size fits all for intensity, meaning that what's intense for me is different than what's intense for Kamal. And that's different for what's intense for you, right? It's subjective to your specific level of conditioning, your body, your ability to perform those movements at that intensity level. A lot of times people confuse effort or how hard they feel like they're working with an actual level of intensity. Now, if we want to get super scientific, the science community, the exercise science community, they define high intensity at anything at 90% or above of your max, your age predicted max heart rate. Age predicted max heart rate is a simple calculation of 220 minus your age, and that is what your theoretical maximum heart rate is. Now, that number has been challenged a number of different times. There are other formulas. Most heart rate monitors that you use, most machines that you get on, if you look at a heart rate chart, it's going to be based off that age predicted max heart rate. There are ways to identify what your true max heart rate is. You can get on a test. There's some different things you can do for that. I'm not going to get into that today, but yeah, so 90% of your max heart rate, your true max heart rate. But a lot of times people feel because they're exercising really hard, or it feels like they're working a lot, that's high intensity. And really what that is it's high effort. And it doesn't always correlate. Just because you feel like you're working really hard sometimes doesn't necessarily correlate that you're at that high level of intensity. And the way HIIT training is designed to be done is you're supposed to exercise at such a high level that you can't maintain that level of intensity for very long, right? 15, 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds for somebody that's pretty conditioned and that is able to do it. But if you're able to go longer than 15 or 20 seconds at that intensity, then you're definitely not working at high intensity. And then the interval part means that you're supposed to have a really long period of rest after that intense work interval. And in most cases, we want you to have what we call full recovery, which means that your heart rate gets all the way back down to a certain number before you begin that next interval, or you give it enough time to allow your body to recover from that intensity so that when you do your next work interval, that you're able to put that same level of intensity into it. What tends to happen for most people is that long period of rest. Most people are like, why am I standing around doing nothing for this period of time? I should be doing something and burning calories right now. But what ends up happening is if you don't give your body enough time to rest, then you're not able to put that same level of intensity into the next work interval, and you're defeating the purpose of high intensity interval training to begin with, right? So that ends up becoming kind of like moderate intensity interval training, and you're then not getting even close to the benefits that what high intensity interval training does. And let's talk about those benefits. So when we talk about energy systems, right, and what your body burns as fuel, there's 3 different pathways that your body can burn fuel from or create energy from. The first and the easiest one is what's called, well, the first one, but it's not necessarily the easiest, but the first one before anything else is what's called the ATP-PC system, or the adenosine triphosphate phosphocreatine system. So everybody's heard of creatine. It's one of the most popular supplements on the market. Your body stores creatine in your muscles. And the first few seconds of anything you do, that's where your body is getting energy from. It's turning phosphocreatine in your muscles into ATP, which is the energy source that your body uses. After the first few seconds, then your body starts to shift to primarily carbohydrate burning, right? So that's where it's burning glucose or glycogen in the muscles. And that's where your energy is coming from. And then once you hit about the 2-minute mark of continuous exercise or movement, then your body shifts to primarily fat burning for its fuel source. So when we're doing high intensity interval training, right, we're only doing it for about 15, 20, 30 seconds at the most. We're really not giving our body enough time to tap into the fat burning system, which we call slow oxidative, or the fat burning system, right? So you're burning all carbs at that level. The benefit of high intensity interval training is it pushes what we call your anaerobic threshold, or that theoretical point where your body shifts from fat burning to 100% carb burning. The higher we can get that into your heart rate zones, or the higher the intensity, then the longer you can go while still burning fat before your body shifts to carbs. If you only do high intensity interval training and you don't ever do any moderate intensity work or slow intensity work, then your body becomes very, very accustomed to burning carbs as its primary fuel source. And your body is very adaptable. If you do that for long periods of time and you don't do other types of conditioning, your body will start to try and burn carbs all the time, even at rest, right? So when you're at work, when you're at home and you're not exercising, your body will tend to want to burn carbs over burning the fat. Your body is a fat burning machine. It's designed to burn fat. At lower intensity levels, you should be burning primarily fat all the time. So high intensity interval training has its place. It has its benefits. It shouldn't be your only form of conditioning or cardio. It should be used, about 20% of your total cardio should be somewhere in the high intensity interval range. Now, low intensity interval or slow cardio, we call it like low intensity steady state cardio. That should make up the bulk of your conditioning. Now, this can be walking, this can be cycling, it can be doing a number of different activities, but the majority of your movement that you do on a weekly basis should be in that low intensity steady state zone, right? Or that phase. And that is what's going to help teach your body to burn fat as a fuel source. It also really helps out with recovery, right? It helps flush toxins out of your body and waste products from lifting weights and doing your HIIT training and that type of stuff. So the majority of your conditioning work should be more low intensity, and you should reserve HIIT training for just certain times. All right, let's see. So we hit intermittent fasting. We talked about fasting cardio. We talked about, are carbs at night bad? No, carbs at night are not bad. Again, there is a lot of different information out there, and some people want to claim that eating carbs at night, that your body is just going to turn those into fat because you're going right to sleep and you're not going to do it. Again, remember, your body doesn't care whether your calories come from one meal or they come from 10 meals. It's spread out over a 24-hour period. So just eating carbs at night isn't going to magically make you gain weight. Again, everybody is a little bit different, right? Some people tend to burn carbs more than others, or store carbs more than others. I think it comes back to experimentation, but just the blanket question of, is eating carbs at night bad for you? The answer is no. And actually, there's some research that says that eating carbs at night actually speeds up your metabolism because it increases your core body temperature. It increases your heat production, which increases your metabolism. Okay, rest days. What do rest days look like, and how often should I take them? Mary, I know that this was your question, and like most questions in the health and fitness realm, the answer is relatively frustrating because the answer is, well, it depends. There are so many factors that go into so many of these things that it's really impossible, and in my opinion, it's negligent to just give a standard cookie cutter. What recovery looks like for one person could be vastly different than another person. A lot of it's going to depend on, your level of fitness, your level of conditioning. What type of weight training are you doing, right? So let's take, for instance, somebody that's in an intensification phase in Invictus, right? The purpose of intensification is we're trying to build strength. So we're training at a higher intensity level, even though our volume or the total amount of work we're doing is lower, our intensity level is higher, right? Which means that we're taxing our central nervous system more, and you might actually need a different level of recovery from intensification as opposed to volumization. Where volumization, we're not working at such a high intensity, but we're doing a lot more work. So our muscles tend to get a lot more sore from volume, right? From that more work as opposed to intensity, right? So if you're doing a 1 rep max and you're just doing 1 rep, you're not going to get sore from that. Very, very unlikely that you're going to get sore. But if you're doing 10 reps and you're doing multiple sets of 10 reps at a lower weight, the cumulative volume is what's going to make you more sore. So you might need more recovery from something like that. So again, recovery is for everybody. If you're not getting in at least 7 hours up to sleep every single night, sorry about that. I think I lost you guys for a second. And then making sure you're getting plenty of water, right? So on average, we want to start at about what is it, 7 glasses of water is what we call for our rule of 7. Most people, we say, you know, that's like table stakes. Like that should be the bare minimum that you're getting in. For most people, we say upping that to about at least half of your body weight in ounces of water is a good kind of baseline for most people. And then again, depending on your activity, depending on your climate, right? If it's a really hot, humid day and you're outside more, then you're going to need more water. Or if you're exercising a lot, then you tend to need more water because you're sweating that out and you're losing it through sweating. How often you should take rest days? Again, it depends on the person. It depends on all of the things that are going on in your life. Think about stress, and exercise is one of those stresses, right? If you've got a lot of mental stress, if you have a demanding job, are supposed to have a positive response, right? It's a stress reliever. It does a number of good things, but at the same time, it's still a stress on the body. So exercising at the right intensity is important to make sure that we're not overstressing an already overstressed body. And then throw in, you know, environmental stressors, like if you're on a medication, if there's some kind of food sensitivity you might have, all of these things add to that overall stress. And again, depending on where you're at from a training perspective and everything else, you might need more rest days than somebody who doesn't have as much stress going on in their life. So again, there's not like a one size fits all answer. It's very dependent on a number of different factors that are at play when it comes to that. How to get more protein in, and how do you know if you're getting enough to begin with? Okay, so that's a really good question. Let's start with the second part of it first. How much protein you should be getting. There's again a lot of different opinions about protein. I would argue that protein is the most important macronutrient, right? And it does for a number of reasons. One, it helps maintain and build muscle mass. The amino acids inside there your body needs for a number of different things. Two, it slows down or increases satiety when you eat it. So it allows you to feel fuller faster and longer. And three, there's what's known as the thermic effect of food. And that's the number of calories that your body burns just to digest the food that you eat. And protein has the highest thermic effect of food than carbohydrates or fat does. So eating protein is going to help increase overall caloric expenditure just by eating protein. Now, how much you should eat? Most people, we start with, about a gram per pound of body weight. right? So if you weigh 150 pounds, then 150 grams of protein is kind of that really easy mark to go from, right? And most people, when we tell them that, they're just like, "Oh my gosh, 150 grams of protein, that's so much." Yeah, it's a lot more than most people eat. The best way to know if you're getting enough is to measure it, right? To do it. And there's a couple of different ways to measure it. The easy way and the way that we recommend for most people is just to do more of like the size of your palm method, right? The size of your palm is a serving size for protein. One serving size is roughly going to be 15 to 20 grams. So if you need 150 of those, you've got quite a bit of palms of protein that you need to get, right? The more accurate way to do it would be to actually weigh out your protein and know exactly how many grams, and use an app like MyFitnessPal or a number of the other apps that are out there to help you do that. And then there are ways to just get more protein in throughout the day, right? So we're really big on eating primarily minimally processed foods. It should be the bulk of your diet, right? So that's foods that haven't really gone through the major industrial process. Something up. And it's a way to add that really good protein in very quickly in a very convenient way. Then and then it next necessarily, or the next kind of thing question when I talk about protein is especially protein powders is, do I take a whey? Do I take a vegan protein? What about collagen? All of these different things. The science, the research that's out there says that the most bioavailable, meaning that the protein that's going, your body has the best ability to absorb, it comes from an animal source. So like whey protein. Some people have a sensitivity to whey. Some people are, usually people that are lactose intolerant can still eat whey because there's no lactose in there. But if for some reason somebody is really trying to stay ethically, not eating animal sources of any kind, then a vegan protein. There's some really good ones out there. Thorne makes a really good one. It's harder to get a good vegan protein because it requires a number of different sources, because there's not one plant that provides all of the amino acids and that like you can get from like beef. So it's a little bit harder. And then collagen protein is not something that I would ever recommend somebody use solely as their protein. You don't get a lot of protein out of it. There are some benefits to like hair, skin, and nails from using collagen protein. And I think it's a good mix of adding it in as a way to just increase protein intake, but to get, mix in some different types of protein throughout the day. All right. Okay. If I'm not losing weight, what should I consider doing differently? Man, that there are so many layers to that question. And there are so many things that there are so many more questions that I would ask to be able to answer that. One, I would look at, okay, so what's my activity level look like? Again, go to the rule of 7 to the water, walk, sleep. How many steps am I getting per day? What's my baseline level of activity? Right? Step number 1. Step number 2, what's my sleep patterns look like? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I giving my body the time to recover and regenerate? 3, what's my exercise program look like? Right? How many days a week am I training? Am I going, what intensity level am I doing? How many days of rest am I doing? That I would start is, what's your daily activity look like outside of exercise? How many steps are you getting in per day? What's your sleep look like? Are you, do you fall asleep easy? Are you staying asleep all night? How many hours? Sorry, guys, my internet keeps cutting me off for some reason, so I'm back on. So, again, to review that last question about, if I'm not losing weight, what should I look at first, or what should I consider changing first? Is I would look at how many steps am I getting per day? What's my daily activity look like? How much sleep am I getting? What's my intensity level size? How many days am I doing it? And what's my recovery look like? And then fourth is when I would start getting into nutrition, what everybody is eating, how many grams of protein, how many calories you're getting in, that kind of thing. How many times per week should you lift weights was a question that was asked. Again, it depends on your goals, depends on what you're looking to do. I recommend at least 2 or 3 times a week of a full body training, of a full body program, meaning that you're hitting all the major muscle groups of the body, all the big movements. Again, depending on what your goals are, if you're, from a health perspective, that should be plenty. If you're trying to, get on stage and do a bodybuilding show or a bikini show, then, you might need more, and your program would look very different. You do more body part splits and do a lot more isolation movements and things like that. But for general health and longevity, 2 or 3 times a week is pretty much the gold standard, the minimum that you should be striving for lifting weights. And then the last question I have is, how many fruits and veggies should we be eating a day? Our rule of thumb is, 1, don't shy away from fruits, right? Again, there are a number of people out there that will tell you that fruits are bad. Fruits are going to make you gain weight because it's sugar, and your body is going to treat it like normal sugar. And that's not true. Like, I've never met anybody that got fat from eating bananas and apples and grapes and things. In terms of veggies, our rule of thumb is, or one of our 5 rules of nutrition is 3 cups of veggies per day, colorful veggies too. It's easy to try and say, only green veggies, but then you're missing out on all the other colors that are out there. And every color of vegetable or food comes with different vitamins and nutrients that are different. And that's what creates the different colors. So try to get a variety of colors, at least 3 cups of vegetables per day of multiple colors, and plenty of fruits. Eat the fruit. Okay, that's all the questions that I had. Do either of you guys have any questions, any clarifying questions, or anything else that you want me to answer?
None that I can think of.
None that Michaela can think of. Okay. Mary?
I do have a question. So when we're trying to modify our macros, we have a certain macros that we're working with. We wait about 2 weeks, and we're not getting the results that we want to see. How do we know how to modify our macros to increase percentages or decrease, and which macros to increase and or decrease?
I would almost always err on the side of adjusting protein more than anything else. Again, assuming that your calories are staying constant, right? So when you say macros and you're adjusting macros, I'm assuming that you're saying, you're eating the same number of total calories. You're just adjusting the percentages of the macronutrients within that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I almost always say increase protein and lower carbohydrates first. The 2 most important things when you're counting something like that is total calories and grams of protein. The other 2 really aren't as important. So if you make sure you're hitting your protein target and you're hitting your overall calorie target, then the percentages of fat and carbs really don't matter that much, right? Because they're just, as long as you're hitting that calorie target. But protein is the one that matters the most.
Okay. So if I'm doing 40% protein,
how many calories are you eating?
1,800. Well, I'm trying 1,800, but it's impossible. My day ends around Yeah, it's impossible. I've been trying to increase my calories, but I've been getting it up to about 1500, and that's been like a lot of food in my day. But I'm trying to get it up to 1800, and in the meantime, I've been trying to just work out my macros. So I'm doing 40% carbs, 30% protein, 30% fat.
So you're trying to get about 180 grams of protein.
Yeah, and it's hard.
Yeah, that's a lot.
No, 180. Where's my paper? I think it's 100. That's 180% carbs I'm trying to hit. 160 protein, I think.
So what do you, so 40% is
Carbs.
40% carbs. How much protein then?
30% protein,
So you're doing
30% fat.
you're doing like the zone diet, right? That's
I
the
don't,
40-30-30 plan.
I have no idea. I
Yeah,
just started with, I don't know. I just started with, I don't know. It didn't call it the zone diet, but
that's fine. That's where it came from. I think the guy who did it was Dr. Barry Sears, and it was really popular in like the 90s for a while. There's the zone diet. It's a 40-30-30. 1800. So are you working with somebody on this, or doing an app or something?
no, I'm not working with anybody. I'm doing it on my own. I'm just following, I don't know. I'm following Christy Aramano O'Donnell or something.
Okay.
She's a CrossFit athlete, and she's, so she just kind of explained it in a video. If you're looking for weight loss, which is what I want, if you're active, start with 1800 calories, 40-30-30 macros. And so that's where I'm starting. And then, she recommends you have to go for it for 2 to 4 weeks and adjust it to how you feel. But,
So how many calories are you actually getting in?
14 to 1500.
So if you were to like average it out over the last 7 days, give me an actual number, not a range.
An actual number of how many calories I'm hitting?
On average for the last 7 days, yeah.
1400.
Okay. So you're not even hitting that you're missing it by 400 calories no matter what. So I would say, so it's hard. So you haven't seen any weight loss, correct? Zero?
No, but that's why I went to this approach, because I was doing 1200 to 1300 calories and not seeing any weight loss. And so
that's too low.
Yeah, we're thinking it was maybe a little too low, especially for my activity level.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially when you start reffing again.
Yes.
So if you're hitting 1400 and so you are seeing weight loss, or you're not seeing weight loss?
Well, I'm just starting, and I haven't even weighed myself yet. I've been doing it for about 2 weeks. And, based on the recommendation is based on how you feel, you should adjust your numbers. So my question is, okay, well, what way do I adjust them based on how I feel?
If I were you, I would focus on, if you're eating 1400 calories and you are losing weight, then I would stay there. If you are eating 1400 calories and you're gaining weight, then obviously it's too much. You're eating more than you're burning, which it would be highly unlikely. If you are stagnant for a period of time, then I would say, the place that I would take you is I would probably up you by 100 to 200 calories per day to start, and be like, all right, we need to figure out a way to get another, to get to 15 or 1600 calories, and then do that for a couple of weeks and see what happens. Right. And most of the time when you're doing these things, and at least the ones that I've done in the past, they've always recommended weighing yourself on a daily basis, but looking at the average at the end of the week. Right. So weighing yourself every day, writing that number down, but then over the course of the week, what is the change, the net change? Is it the same, or is it up? Is it down? Right? Looking at that average. But yeah, you don't want to make changes too fast, because you got to give your body time to adapt to it. So, I mean, when you say you just started this, how long have you been doing it?
Well, the macro thing I've been trying for a while, ever since I did the nutrition program. And so these macros here, I just started 2 weeks ago, 40,
Okay.
30, 30, 2 weeks ago. And so, like, I understand the adjusting the calories up or down. If you're losing weight, great, 1400 is fine. If you're not, but what do you think about adjusting macros? Should I even be worrying about that at all, as long as I'm hitting at least 140 protein grams?
Yeah, I wouldn't mess with it at all right now. I mean, unless it gets to a point where you're either flatline, like you haven't changed for a while, like at least 2 or 3 weeks, then maybe start to manipulate stuff. But I mean, yeah, I mean, how do you feel? Do you feel good? Are you sleeping good? Do you feel like you have energy to get your workouts done and to do all the stuff you need to do throughout the day?
Yeah, I do feel like I always sleep well. That's never been an issue. Um, and I do feel like really full at the end of the day. I feel like it's way too much food, but obviously I need more food too. I understand that.
Yeah, are you doing protein powders or anything like that for convenience?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Once a day.
I mean, you might have to do a second one.
Okay.
I mean, you know, there's not a lot of tricks to getting more protein, other than, you know, doing protein powder, mixing it in with different things. Like you can mix some in with your coffee, you can put it in a smoothie, you can, like if you eat over like oatmeal, you can put protein in there. There's ways that I've used protein powder, a lot of different ways to add it to different meals to just increase protein content.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say by the mid-afternoon I'm feeling really sluggish and tired because I'm trying to eat so much food. How do I know how to adjust my macros at that point? If I'm sluggish and tired because of the amount of food I'm eating and my macros are 40, 30, 30, like where do you know what do you do to adjust them? You
I
say,
would
okay, you're sluggish and tired, you need more carbs.
I would probably argue that you being sluggish and tired isn't related to what you're eating, like the amount of food, but more of like an adrenal function. That's more like the way your adrenal glands are functioning. Like you shouldn't have like a lull in the midday. Your body, you should be able to just continue going regardless of how many, you know, unless you're very undernourished. But that's definitely not the case. Like you're giving your body plenty of energy, it sounds like. What again, repeat the question. What exactly did you want to know what to change?
Like how do you know what macros to adjust and which way to adjust them based on how you feel? Because
No,
that's the recommendation is do these percentages, see how you feel after a certain amount of time, and then adjust them according to how you feel. But nobody ever says what
yeah,
to adjust based
it's
on what
carbs.
symptoms. So
It's primarily carbs. Like, but it can go either way, right? So eating carbs might actually increase your feeling of being tired, right? Because carbs increase your heat, your body temperature, and that makes you want to sleep. So you might actually lower the amount of carbs you're eating, and you might feel good. It's all experiment. It's all experiment, right? Like
yeah.
there's no one size do this and this is guaranteed to work. Like your unique physiology, even though that 90% of it's going to operate just like everybody else's, like there are going to be some things that are going to be a little bit different. And that's one aspect of it, but the bigger aspect is your lifestyle is unique. It's different than everybody else's, right? And yes, there are aspects that look similar, but no two people have the exact same identical lifestyle down to the minute, right? So there's going to be differences in all of that stuff. So, you know, anybody that tells you that they have the answer is lying to you. And it's all a big experiment. It's all guessing, right? Like we know typically this is what typically happens, but we got to experiment and see how it works with you, how it works with your body, how you feel. It's all just a long-term experiment.
Yeah. Okay. And that's what everybody keeps saying,
Yeah.
experiment with it. And, and she even says like, this could take you 6 months to a year to figure it out. And I can understand why, because I don't know what direction to go in. So you just kind of have to go in one direction, see how you feel, and figure it out from there.
Exactly how it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Even as nutrition coaches, I mean, most of the time we're like, okay, here's what we think, and we're going to test it. You're going to do this for a while, and then we're going to gather data, and we're going to see what the results were, and then we're going to make adjustments one way or the other and see what happens then.
Yeah.
It's like educated guesses. I mean, it's better than just throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks and doing that. Like you're at least using some form of data to try and have, see a trend or see what could be going, what could be, causing it or making that adjustment. And then when you change it, it's like, all right, now what happens? What happens to your body composition? What happens to your weight? What happens to your energy? What happens to your sleeping? Some people go so far as to have you take your body temperature every single day, right? Because that can determine different things. It just depends on the data that particular person is using to make those educated guesses.
Yeah.
I know.
All right,
It's
thanks.
because you would love for there to just be like here's the answer, but there is no one answer. It's just not how it works.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is fun. I hope I answered some questions from people, and it's recorded, so I'll put that recording out there so everybody can see it.
Thanks, Josh.
You're very welcome. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Well, Invictus Tribe, that was our first office hour. So I hope that you got some stuff out of it. I hope you learned some things. I hope you, maybe it sparked some ideas or some additional questions. So feel free to reach out either through Facebook, shoot us a text, send us an email, talk to us in the club, carrier pigeon, smoke, signals, whatever you need to do to get our attention. But we're here to help you. So I appreciate it. And here's to becoming unconquerable.